Hi everybody, welcome back to the Magic Kingdom. The sun's doing, I'm chasing the sun here, the sun is chasing me. I'm not quite sure if I'm getting blown out by it, but I'm going to go with it. Because I'm really inspired and excited to talk a lot more about deep listening. Now, I want to spend this 4 or 5 minute video talking about one singular thing, brothers and sisters, and that is identification listening, which is maybe the mothership of non-deep listening. Let me repeat that. The biggest non-deep listening that one can do. What is identification listening? If you meet a friend and you tell them about, they say, hey, how's it going? And then you start to talk about something that's going on with you. And then their response is, hey, cool. And then they start talking about something that relates to what you're saying, but it's about them. That's identification listening. And most of the time, people are doing it innocently. They think that when they tell them something about themselves that relates to what you're saying, it's a way of connecting with you. But my contention, brothers and sisters, it isn't. Whatever it was you shared with them initially is not being acknowledged. They feel it's acknowledging you. But they've all of a sudden made it about themselves. And I'm sure you've all experienced this with people, and you might have even been guilty of it yourself. I'm sure I've been guilty of that myself. I have been working on not attracting these type of people for many, many years, but every once in a while they show up. I was talking to a client the other day, and it constantly happens in their life. Now, this can also go on in relationships, right? You say something to your partner, and then they automatically make it about them instead of asking questions. See, to me, brothers and sisters, when you're asking questions to somebody, not interrogating, that's very, very important, guys, that means that you are being curious about what's going on with the other person. They've shared something with you, and then you say, oh, wow, that's really cool. Can you tell me more about that? Oh, wow, how did you make that happen? Could be anything. That is you acknowledging what they're saying. Questions about the content of what they told you is acknowledgement. That's a good thing to remember, guys. I see more and more of this happen, I think, in this world than any other kind of non-deep listening. And you got a lot, and then what the result of it is nobody feels acknowledged. Now, sometimes what happens is, since my practice here in Sedona is a practice of women, that you have women who feel like that nobody's listening to them. Their partners aren't listening to them. And when they get out in the world and they encounter somebody, they got a lot to say. So every opportunity, every opening that they get from another person, they immediately turn it around and make it about them because they just don't get a chance to share themselves. And I could totally understand them doing that. That happens in my office all the time. They just want to be listened to without being fixed, without being interrogated, without trying to find the clue. This is what I call listening for the clue to fix you listening. Now, men are a little bit guilty of that, right? They just want to be heard. This is something I've said over and over again in my video series and here on retreat. The most beautiful thing in the world is an acknowledged wife or woman. And at some point, I've been threatening this for a few years. I'm going to figure it out. Maybe my new friend and consultant, Debbie Crawford, will figure it out, is where I can get in front of a large group of men and straighten them out about this, because I think they're really missing it. They're really missing these beautiful partners they have because they're not listening to them from their heart. And deep listening, brothers and sisters, just to repeat this a little bit, is about asking questions, but also listening with nothing on your mind. No filters, no association listening, I know listening, I got it listening. Turning off the listening. Attack listening, ready to missile your attack missiles listening. It goes on and on and on. I think you know what I mean. And in parenting, that comes up a lot. We have concern listening, protection listening, fear listening, worry listening. All of those things are very natural, but You don't have to do them. Your kids will feel so acknowledged when you start to listen to them, brothers and sisters, with nothing on your mind. And you'll start to see shifts in your children that just will amaze you. Because in doing a big core of my work here in the Magic Kingdom is working on the inner child, right? And most inner children did not feel listened to by their parents. And then that had all sorts of just giant ramifications through their whole life. So what you can do now is sort of stop that cycle, guys, and start listening to your children with nothing on your mind, with any of those fear filters, protection filters, concern filters. I don't want them to make the same mistake that I made listening, right? The last thing you want to do, let's circle back around to identification listening. And listen, I think it's very natural for any parent to do this, is to be parenting that child and telling them some story about yourself that relates to what they're going through. I promise you guys, those kids are switching that off most of the time. Because it feels like a lecture. It feels like, it's the old story, well, when I was a kid, I walked 10 miles to go to school. Kids these days have a whole just overwhelming experience, different experience than when we had when we were kids. So let's stop comparing our childhood experience to theirs. Let's listen to what's going on with them. Let's see how they see their world. Another aspect of deep listening, brothers and sisters, is getting curious about how our children see their world. Getting curious about what makes sense to them. So this is my deep, deep encouragement to everybody in the next week or 10 days, is to really be careful of telling your story as a way to connect into somebody, as opposed to asking them questions and really just being as quiet as you can when they are telling you what's going on in their lives. And I think you're going to find people will share with you at a deeper level when you do that. That's the wonderful outcome of that. People will feel safe with you. People will, listen, this is it, guys. People will feel important. Who doesn't want that for themselves? And who doesn't want that for our loved ones and our friends? To make them feel important by hearing what they're saying and not making it about ourselves suddenly, even though it might be innocent. Okay, guys? I hope to see you out here in the Magic Kingdom. Those of you interested in the Spiritual Warrior program, and this is an aspect of it, one of the most popular aspects of the program is learning about deep listening. Please contact me. I hope you have a wonderful week. Aho! Ichik washte.